Well, hello everyone. Welcome here to George M. James book show. I have to say, I was asked by a few people to say something about this attack of the US on Venezuela. I hope I say that word correctly. And it doesn't. It of course didn't come out of the blue. I mean, we were expecting it, but there's a lot of things I think behind it which people are not fully aware of. And so we're just looking at it quickly and to see what exactly is going on behind the front, and behind mainstream media, which is totally in their pockets and have, of course, a certain agenda which we are trying to bullshit you with. And it's always been like that, and it always will be like that, especially in these days, which is the last days, end of times, which I believe is close. Not like in tomorrow close, but quite close. Might even be in our lifetime. So yeah, for me, I always look at things from a biblical viewpoint, as well as a legal viewpoint, as well as an intelligence viewpoint. And it is possible actually to get all of those viewpoints together. And unless you can do that, or unless you can see the bigger picture, I'm afraid you are going to struggle, because most people will look at this from a tactical viewpoint, and then you're not going to get answers. You will understand what happened, but you will not understand why. And from a strategic viewpoint, of course, you will understand why. And from a higher viewpoint, you might understand the why even better, because, everything plays out according to the prophecies. There's a lot of people I know from the comments I get. There's a lot of people who don't believe in what I believe in. I respect that, whatever. It's your problem in life, not mine. And I always say to people, before you start jumping to conclusions, just read the books. Read the books before you do that, because I really explain a lot more in the books than what I can explain here in a few minutes, or say an hour at the most. I hope less even on what I think is going on, and I speak of experience. We've been watching this for many years, and it's actually quite fascinating and nice for me to see it playing out, even though it's going to get frightening and a lot more frightening than what it is today. Now, firstly, from a tactical viewpoint, basically the US Special Forces went into Caracas, I think you call it like that, Venezuela, and they kidnapped. There's no such thing as arrest. They kidnapped. It's a criminal act. They kidnapped a foreign head of state, and they brought him to the US on spurred up charges of being a narco-terrorist. There's no such thing in the law books, by the way. And I understand they charged him with one of the things they are charging him with, and we'll know more today. But what we know is on a law, some act which the US Supreme Court has said is unlawful. The entire act is unlawful. It shouldn't have any powers. So it's just bullshit from beginning to end. And they went in, basically, they destroyed a few aircraft, anti-aircraft batteries. They destroyed a few places here and there. They killed about 40 people, which we know about. They suffered no losses whatsoever. Why? Simply because they had arrangements already with traitors inside the Venezuelan military. They got them to stand down the air defenses, and they basically sold Maduro, the kidnapped president, down the line. They just sold him out. Or it might be that he is actually part of this and he arranged his own kidnapping. It's not impossible. Unlikely, but not impossible. We'll see what happens to him afterwards. So it's a regime change, and it's a typical scenario of trying to put your own people in control, and then, of course, you start making the money, and everything will be hunky-dory. We've tried it before. You tried it in Vietnam, and you got fucked up. You tried it in Iraq, and you got fucked up. You tried it in Afghanistan, and you got fucked up. And really, it's going to be different now, right? It's going to be different. Didn't Einstein say something like doing the same thing? And expecting a different result is insanity. In fact, he never actually said that, but it is attributed to him. Attributed to him, yeah. So, so technically, this was a great success, and you will hear Donald J. Trump, Big Daddy himself, as well as the rest of the US will be like, man, we're just the best. So look at this, we're just great, we're the greatest, blah blah. You're gonna hear that shit all the time. In fact, let me rock your boat a little bit, and I say to you straight: read my books, and also especially the book "American Military Might Debunked," which was written in 2017 already, when I started warning. And basically, what I say to you is, U.S. Special Forces are shit, and they are not good enough to operate behind enemy lines. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, they always operate in countries where they have some legitimacy, where they are welcome in some way. Like take Venezuela now, they had some kind of an agreement with the military there. They probably bribed them, and they got some kind of agreement going that they will stand down the air defenses. They will not defend. Yes, you can go and come and just kidnap our president. That's basically what happened. And so they just went in and they did that. Now, contra to that, if you look at South African special forces in the 1970s, 80s, were operating behind enemy lines in hostile environments. You know, it's in a country which will actually hunt them down if they can get hold of them. There will be shootouts, they will be hunted. At times they had to be rescued in the sense that they had to call for the choppers to come and get them, things like that. You don't see that with the US, not at all. And you don't see that with the West, in fact. They simply cannot do it. They're not good enough to do it, which is why I have such contempt for them. And yeah, that includes the Brits as well. All of them, actually. They only operate in friendly countries, so to speak, where they have some kind of an agreement. So tactically, even though the US will blow us out of all proportions, and to their credit, they did get their man and they did get him out without murdering many more, which we know about. It's a failure. It's a failure with a big F, and we're going to see in the next days and months what's happening now, because they're definitely going to try and install a puppet government, and then they're going to move in the big corporates. What is fascism again? Come, tell me. If you've listened to me before, you read my books, you should know what's fascism. Fascism is where big companies start taking hands, the big corporates with government, and these companies start doing things which government cannot or will not do. And I always give you the example of a suppression of free speech during this horrible illness, which wasn't that horrible, and where people actually started warning, and they got immediately thrown off and suppressed, and cannot even call that illness by its name yet. So it just shows you that was a classic example of what happens with your fascism. So in other words, you have a right to say these things which you want to say, on to your mates and everybody else, and warn them about the great illness and the treatments they offer. Everything which turned out to be true, by the way, of the alternative views turned out to be true. And guess what? You can say that on the state laws. But when you work on a private platform, the private platform people, the owners, will decide what you say on their platform, and then since they have control, they will just get rid of you. Classic example. And then you see that the FBI and CIA and the rest of them were all actually embedded in Facebook, and I think Twitter as well, and the rest of them. YouTube, definitely. We know, if you read my books, that there's an unholy relationship between the US military and Hollywood. Yes, they actually have offices in Hollywood, and they will supply whatever you want as long as you make them look good. And it was exactly the same with the FBI, exactly the same with the CIA. And of course, Hollywood, yeah, well, once again, read Oath of Evil, warn Protestantism, and I hope you actually do. And I see that all my books, the one which is selling the most is actually that one. Now, again, guys, I don't really need the money. I don't care. I just put a price on it so that you actually read it if you buy it. Because what I found in life is if you give somebody something for free, then he normally doesn't read it. He just gathers up dust there on his Kindle or on his closet or wherever he doesn't read it. So you have to put value on it. That's why I'm doing it. So tactically speaking, this was a greater success. They did succeed in what they wanted to do. And let me also say it was a piss easy mission. I'm sure they will all get high medals for this, but then they get medals for doing push-ups. So really, really. Against another country, well, let me put it to you like that. Go and capture Vladimir Putin for me. Go and do it. Want to see how you do it. Go and capture, let's say, the Brazilian president, or let's go and capture the Chinese president, even the South African one. Yeah. Go and try that. See what happens to you and your helicopters. You will not survive it. So they won't try it, not in that way. Also, what I've been warning about since 2017, when American military might debunked came out, is the way which the US operate. Now, they're not a big military power anymore, really. They're actually quite pathetic. But against a small country, they can really do harm. Of course they can. Because they like a local bully. They arrive and they flex their muscles and they put pressure until the small country cracks or they attack the small country. You will never see them try this with a place like Russia or China, ever. But even if they do, they will see their asses. Definitely. And so they will try to get a scenario where you have like many countries against one. Exactly what you see in Ukraine now. Many countries against one country standing firm. That's Russia, who, by the way, is winning. But what they would do is they would arrive and then they would build up their forces and build up their forces and build up their forces. And then one night suddenly they're going to strike. They're going to come in with their so-called stealth bombers, which ain't stealth. Then they're going to arrive with their cruise missiles, which is shite. And they're going to take out air defenses because that's what they put in their pants most. They're scared of air defenses. They don't want to see the pilots being paraded down the streets like in Hanoi in the old days. They don't want to see that, or even in the Gulf Wars, they don't want to see that. Many of you wouldn't know, but in the second Gulf War, there was actually an Apache battalion which had to be withdrawn from service because the attack helicopters got so badly shot out and mauled that they couldn't carry on. They had to leave a line. That's what's going to happen if you fly into these type of defenses. Really, I spoke to a test pilot the other day, Colonel Trevor Alston. Now, he was on the attack helicopter, the South African one. He was a test pilot on the Royvalk. And the video isn't out yet. Perhaps I'll put it out here on the GMJ show so long. And please, let me also say to you once again, the people I mentioned here, like Colonel Ralston, got nothing to do with this video, got nothing to do with the GMJ books, or George M. James's thoughts. I'm just quoting what he said to me in that video when he said, look, he basically said that the time of helicopters flying like that with and manned aircraft is over. As far as he's concerned, the drones has been taking over, so the machines has taken over. You can only do that type of thing in an environment where you can actually fly. And so air supremacy is a very big deal. And the West never had it in the 1980s, by the way. If you read my book, Codename Blue Tank, I mention it so many times here, you will find out because of a South African connection called the Kukri system, as well as Soviet missiles, air-to-air missiles, and the aircraft. You would find out that after Germany became one, reunited, they tested the East German Air Force. And guess what? The West lost every engagement. They lost. Don't believe me? Well, go and read the book. Oh, you will find the links to people who, once again, has nothing to do with the books, who will actually fighter pilots who were there, and they would explain this to you as well. So, you ain't as great as you think you are. And there I'm quoting Golda Meir, one of the female Israeli First Minister, Premier, what do you call it, Kolomir, yeah. Wonderful woman. She once said that she's the only man in the cabinet. And we had to laugh, but of course she saw her ass with Yom Kippur. It's sad. This is also the one where she and Moshe Dayan uh, started sending signals out to the US that they're going to start using the nuclear weapons. They were losing that badly. Now, okay, so I've explained the tactical view to you here. Let's go to the strategic view. Let's see if what's happening strategically. As far as I'm concerned, and of course, feel free to disagree. I don't really care what your views are, but feel free to disagree. I see this as an attack on China. Why? Because China is the superpower these days. The US ain't. China is the one who's actually got the manufacturing processes going and manufacturing half of the world. The US ain't. They sold out. Once again, they sold out in the 1990s, 80s when they started moving all their manufacturing abroad. Now, yeah, I know a lot of you will talk about the quality of stuff coming from China, and you will roll your eyes, and you know what, you don't know what you're talking about. For us who live here in the East, where I am in Thailand, we deal with a lot of Chinese stuff, especially here in the hotel where we buy lots of stuff from China, like fire extinguishers, uh, equipment, whatever you can call and can think of, we can buy from there. It is top class quality at a very low price. You know, it is really good prices. Even their vehicles, their cars. I mean, I drive an MG, which is not, repeat, not the old MGs of the UK. It's bought out by China and manufactured here in Thailand. Fantastic car. I mean, before that, I drove a Mercedes and a BMWs and Volkswagens and all those fancy German cars. I will not go back to a German car ever. Never. And just yesterday, my wife, or the day before, took a taxi to the hospital because I was with a car at church on the Sabbath day on Saturday. And she had to take her mom in for something to hospital. They drove in a bid, BYD, Build Your Dreams. And she said, that's electrical car, that's the next car we buy. So you see what I'm saying to you is that don't underestimate the Chinese manufacturing. Really, you live in a dream world if you do that. They are good. And just for an instance, they can build 258 ships for every one which the US can build. Yeah. How's that going for you? That's why the Chinese Navy is bigger and better, in my eyes, than the US Navy. Of course, you'll come now with your stories about aircraft carriers. Well, you can't even man all those aircraft carriers, man. You don't have enough people. You don't have enough aircraft. Half of them are always in the dock. They're costing you a fortune, and they will be sunk within days. You will never get through the missile shields. Yeah, you don't believe me? Well, what happened with the Houthis? You had to run away. Oh, guys, you know, it's shocking these things I say to you, but sometimes I just have to get to you. I have to get you to get away from this idea of we just have to arrive and bomb people and it's going to work. As I said, it might work with a small country or a country which you right or a country which the military isn't that good. It will not work with a country who's going to fight back. I know, for instance, if you build up your forces, let's say in Botswana, to attack South Africa, you start hanging around Cape Town to attack South Africa, we will attack you first. We won't. We'll attack you first. We might see our asses afterwards and have to go, you know, the guerrilla warfare thing, to the terrorism warfare. That's what you do against a major power, and you always win. You always win when you do that. It takes years, but you win. Then, yeah, you're going to suffer losses. We will never allow you just to build up your forces to come and attack us. And if you don't believe me, go and read Codename Angel, I believe, where I speak. It's about the atomic weapons. And I think in that book I mentioned that the US actually had a plan to bomb Pretoria. Yeah, to bomb Pelindaba from Botswana. They wanted to come and destroy the nuclear program, which they were aware of course. There were a lot of traitors in the old South Africa as well. But at the same time, I don't see what happened in Venezuela of the military totally selling out the current government. I just don't see that. But we don't know. We don't know actually who's next. Greenland, yeah, might be. Greenland, yeah, before we enter the year, probably. Cuba, definitely. There's that to do with Cuba as well. And then Colombia, they've already want all those countries, and I've heard along the line South Africa too, because South Africa is isolated and it is weak. Military speaking, it's not as good as it used to be. But perhaps you should then also read Codename Mel's Choice and find out about the huge Chinese military base in the southern part, southeast part of Maringwe in Zimbabwe. Yeah, yeah. Go and read about that because I guarantee you don't know about it. And neither does the Western intelligence analysts. So strategically for me, this was an attack on China. Now let me explain this to you. If China is the manufacturing giant of the world currently, and it is, and nothing is going to stop it, you have to try and break them down. And one of the ways to do it is to deny them energy, right? Deny them oil. Where do they get their oil from? Well, primarily from the Middle East, Russia, as well as Venezuela, which is probably going to be cut now or reduced anyway, which is one of the reasons, one of the main reasons why they're doing it. And then let's say when a war breaks out between Iran and Israel, with of course, US second beast of the Bible assistance, very, very possible scenario. And let's say Iran then close the Strait of Hormuz, or whatever you call them, and now oil stops flowing. The US is still fine. It's got its own oil, and it got the oil from Venezuela. You see where this is heading. So who's not getting the oil? Once again, is China. Not getting the oil as well as the rest of the world. And let me tell you, you will not just take Iran like you did with Venezuela. But you didn't take Venezuela, by the way. You just removed the president. Now you have to install a puppet government. Then you have to pray to God when your big oil companies move in that they don't get attacked. And then when they get attacked, and then note my words, when they get attacked, say this is the same scenario as Iraq, man. When that happens, you will do what? You'll have to put boots on the ground. And now you're going to get fucked up. Yeah, definitely. And then you're going to run to places like Blackwater. We're going to commit lots of violent crimes once again. And you're going to then have to protect these people. You cannot protect them. And what's the future? Civil war? People don't like foreign troops in their countries. It doesn't matter if you go there with the best of intentions and you really deep down, I suppose, honorable people and you just want to help and you want to restore democracy and all these things. They don't want you there, right? They don't want you. I've been speaking to a lot of Muslim women myself. I was married to one once. She died in the line of duty in the service of France. We never speak about her much, and she is in my book. She's called Lemon Bomb in a fictional way. But let me tell you, she was modern Muslim, very much against the jihadis, and we would talk about this, and then she would say to me, "Listen to me. This is my culture. This is how I grew up. Don't try and change me. I don't want your views. I don't want your Christianity. I reject it." And it's the same with the rest of the people now. Venezuela, as far as I know, is a Catholic country, which is fascinating now because, of course, a lot of them will now, more of them even will now go to the US, which is rapidly becoming a Catholic country, by the way. Used to be Protestant, but it's Obama who said they are not Christian. And then he was 100% correct. They're not Christian. It's the second beast of the Bible. And again, if you people don't know what I'm talking about, read Oath of Evil, The War on Protestantism. There's other books as well which mention these things, but there we go into very, very deep detail. Where I say to you in the Bible, you find it's a Protestant Bible, not a Catholic crap or whatever else you read. King James, nothing but the King James. And all the evidence is in that book, or go to the Bible yourself. If you've seen this book, read this book, go to the links which I provide you, and you will then definitely come to the same conclusion, because there is no other conclusion. It's not possible. I was hunting for other conclusions for 5 years. didn't just one day woke up and smell the coffee. It took a lot of research and a lot of praying and things like that. But in the Bible, we talk about a dragon that is Lucifer, Satan, and it says this Satan, Lucifer, gave its power on earth to a first beast, which is a terrible beast, which will commit a lot of nonsense. It will speak blasphemous. It will say it's higher than God or it's equal to God. Yeah. The other day I explained to you that if a Catholic priest tell you that he's forgiven you your sins, then God himself has to listen to him. That's blasphemy. Yeah. It will try to change time. Well, yeah, it actually did. He tried to. Didn't succeed, but he did. What time are you using today? Did you go from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian? Did you change from the biblical times where it becomes the next day when the sun goes down? But today it's not like that. It's at midnight. Yeah. Who changed that? Tell me, who changed that? Yeah. I was just asking. It's the Antichrist himself, the Pope. That's who changed it. All the evidence are there. I can't see how you can miss it. And then the Bible also says that this terrible beast, this first beast, is going to get a wound, and is going to transfer his power to another power, the second beast. And the wound will not be fatal. Guys, if you've listened to me before, you all know these things, but there might be people here who don't know what I'm talking about because you will not hear this in the normal Protestant churches. The only church who will come out of this and throw it in your face every single day is the Seventh-day Adventist. Why? Because they discovered the truth and they have a need to tell you about it. And so in 1798, the Catholic Church did get a wound, mortal wound, but not mortal enough, didn't die. What a pity. And then it was restored by Mussolini. I'm not going to go into this again. Go and read Oath of Evil if you want to know more. Fact is, that power from Satan went into the Catholic system. Note I say the system. I did not say you as a Catholic. Don't come with shit to me again by saying to me I hate Catholics. I'm going to really react not well when you say that to me because you're talking nonsense and you miss the point. And then secondly, this power, once it was broken, then went over to the next power, which is the US of A. You think it's just me saying it? Some craphead sitting here somewhere not having theories? No. All the reformers, the great reformers, all of them where you can mention, all of them identified the US, or if it was before the US officially came to power, in 1774 when they were recognized by France, or 1782, France recognized them around about there. It's in Oath of Evil. They said it must be close. It must be close. This new power must be close. And it's going to happen. And it did happen. And now what we see is the US has changed into the second beast. So they're bringing in fascism, which I just described to you, where you basically take a country and you put it on a government control. But this government is not actually a government for the people, by the people. No, it's a big corporate somewhere. You see what's happening? It's exactly fascism. So let me go back. Now you've cut Venezuela oil off from China. Now you start a war with Iran to help Israel, and then they close the straits, and now the oil starts slowing down there as well. The only country which is left to supply China to keep it as a superpower with their manufacturing is what? Is basically Russia. Of course, there will be other smaller countries as well, but it depends on who controls the sea routes. And there you see now South Africa coming into the play. Because South Africa, where it's situated at the southern point of Africa, that's the name, South Africa, that's very, very important. And that is why it was invaded twice by the Brits to be taken over, just because of that, because they couldn't take the risk of that sea route being cut. And of course, when you have to cut sea routes, you need bases, you need harbors, you need docks, you need logistics, all of those things. Does the US Navy capable to do this? No, the West isn't. There's no way in the world that the West can actually do this without a fight and without taking heavy, heavy losses. They probably will not succeed, but they will try because they're desperate. Because I also understand if you listen to the economist, and I do, people like Professor Yersheimer, Professor Sachs, all those people, I listen to them as well. Then you would find out that the US actually have to pay $3 trillion of debt repayments, interest only. $3 trillion. You know how much is that? $3,000 billion a year, which they now have to pay back. They don't have it. They don't have that kind of money. So they got to somehow break China, or they're going to lose. And it is also so that in the history of the world, if there's an upcoming superpower like China, and it is a superpower, it's going to clash with the existing one, which is the second beast, the US. And in the history of the world, always, this upcoming one is going to defeat the old one. It's going to happen. But what if you can also then crash the dollar at the same time? And now I'm speaking at a level higher, actually, than strategic. Now I'm talking prophecies and biblical and so forth. But before I do that, let me just say that this idea of cutting oil is not new. Again, those of you who read my books will know that I often speak about a fellow called Dasko Popov, also known as Tricycle. And he's a triple agent. He worked for Germany as well as for the Brits, and you can say, I suppose, for his own country and America as a spy in the Second World War. And he actually found out about the Pearl Harbor plans of the Japanese. And he warned his British handlers. They were so concerned, they actually sent him to the US, where the FBI under Hoover, you know, that closet guy, who actually then arrested him under the Mann Act for taking a woman, young woman. She wasn't a child or anything like that. It's not like Epstein. But he took her over state lines and they had sex or something, and then they arrested him for that under the Mann Act. That's what they call it. And they wouldn't listen to him. And then afterwards, after the war, there was inquiries on it in Congress, and it turned out that the US Navy lied. Yes, like I'm not telling the truth deliberately, like it lied 3 times on an oath about exactly what happened at Pearl Harbor. And then a little bit later, it came out that this Franklin Delano Roosevelt, you know, a Satan worshipper, that 53-degree Freemason, the one who they say actually started the UN, United Nations, which is an occultic organization as well. Read my books. Once again, I have all the evidence. But it wasn't him. It was the other Satan worshipper, Winston S. Churchill, who actually came up with that name of the United Nations when they met. And they had this prayer service there on a battleship, which I think the Prince of Wales, which got sunk a little bit later, a few months later, in a clash with Japanese imperial forces. Yeah, that and Repulse, wasn't it? The battle cruiser. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You see the hand of them everywhere, and they were ones who started the oil embargo against Imperial Japan, which led directly to the attack on Pearl Harbor. And it was called an 8-point plan because it was created in the early 1930s, and it was created to force Japan to attack them. Yeah, that's what they wanted. So you see there is a historic parallel there. There is history once again repeating, which is again why I say to you that in my world, knowledge of history is rated much more higher than the knowledge of law, because everything you do in that world is anyway illegal, cannot be justified. If you go and kidnap somebody somewhere, you might call it a snatch operation, or you might say, no, you executed a warrant of arrest, but you know, little asshole, let me explain something from law to you. Unless that warrant is actually issued by an international court, like on, what's his name? Bibi, Netanyahu, and the rest of them, then it's of no consequence. You can't just go and grab somebody in a different country and bring him to your country because you have a warrant of arrest out on him. No, it doesn't work like that under international law. Nothing which the US did here, the second beast, can be justified under international law. Under their own laws, yes, probably they can. Because we saw that with Noriega, when they captured him there back in the 88, 87, around about there. at, what was it, Panama? Even that they fucked up completely. But they did get the guy once again after a while. And the defense, I believe, I'm told by American lawyers, was raised that he wasn't legally captured, and therefore, since he was not legally arrested, he should be released. But in any other country except for the second beast of the Bible, that would be the case. But not in the second beast. No. They have their own rules there. It is a fascist state, so that's what you will expect there. Now, some of you South Africans listening to me now will remember that at some stage, an aircraft flying to Lesotho or Swaziland had to divert because of weather and landed in Bloemfontein, which is in the middle of South Africa. And the police boarded that aircraft and they grabbed some dissident there from the cancer, as we call the African National Congress, because of their failure since 1994. And they grabbed this guy and they arrested him because they had him. Now, there's no difference between what they did and what happened in Venezuela. It's the same scenario. The difference is the South African courts told them to release that guy, even if he was wanted as a terrorist or dissident or whatever he was. They had to release him. They released him and he pissed off and he went and committed further crimes, or perhaps he didn't. I don't know. Can't remember that anymore. Point I'm making to you is the US has strange laws. And it is also so that the FBI is behind most of the terrorist attacks in the US. You don't believe me? Read my books. I've got all the evidence. I won't say this to you. And when I say these things, it's not actually even me saying it. It is Princeton University and I think Northwestern. They actually made studies on this for one of the fancy universities. And that's the conclusions which they came out to. I'm just repeating to you what you don't know. And it's not your fault if you don't know, because unless you read the alternative views or books, and you just listen to CNN or Fox News or the White House, yeah, and you're going to have certain views. And everything I say to you now will be so shocking, you'll be angry. Probably already stopped listening. That's fine with me. I don't care. Fact of the matter is, if you've got Venezuela, you've got Iran's oil, Venezuelan oil, and only Russian oil is left, and you can somehow sabotage that pipeline, or you can break Russia, as they're trying to do, then tell me, guys, where is China? What happens to China then? Where is it? Where is it? Is it broken? Yeah, it's completely broken if you do that. So you see, that is the bigger picture. Now, is Donald Trump and mates that clever to actually see this? I suppose so. I suppose that deep down they are under control of his satanic influences anyway. And so the people around him, the Jesuits and people like that around him, definitely would be able to think the way I think now. Others like little Marco Rubio, probably not. Probably he's just saying, I've got Venezuela, now the oil is cut to Cuba, and therefore I can get revenge for my grandparents or whoever fled from Cuba. We're going to break Cuba. Okay, now you broke Cuba, so what? Who cares? What did you get out of it? I mean, does Cuba have anything you want except revenge? What's your motives? It's just revenge, nothing else. Honduras and Colombia, yeah, that's where the drugs actually come from, is Colombia. We all know about this. The story of attacking Venezuela because of drugs coming to the US, absolute bullshit. If you go to the DEA, what's it, Drug Enforcement Agency websites, you will actually find out that most of the drugs, very little of them anyway, comes from Venezuela. But those that comes out all go to Europe, and I assure you, they don't take a little motorboat to travel to Europe either. Yeah, don't be stupid. And they don't take little motorboats to come all the way from Venezuela all the way to the US either. Don't be stupid. Really, I mean, they spin all these stories, and that is also a classic trademark of a second beast. Because the Bible says so. It will speak like a lamb. It will speak like Jesus. It will look Christian-like. It will be like, oh, it's for the good of the people. Oh, we're stopping the drugs coming in, which is harming our people. Oh, we're rescuing these people from a dictator. Oh, we're going to put in the democracy. Oh, our intention is so good. But then they act like Satan himself. So they speak like a lamb and they act like a dragon. And that's what you see here. This is brute force. This is absolute brute force to take another country's oil and whatever else they need, and just to take it over. And so that is the higher view. But also, we want to crash the dollar. Now, remember a few years ago, the World Economic Forum at Davos crowd. I've got fuck all time for them. Nothing. They sat down there and they said that you, in 2030, and that's not far away from now, guys, you will have nothing and you'll be happy. Yeah, why? Why? Because if it is true, let's say the Bible is correct. Let's try and follow me. Let's say the Bible is correct to identify the dragon, which is Satan, the first beast, which is the Catholic system, which came to a fall and then resurrected itself, and it handed its power over to the second beast, which is the US. Let's just say that scenario is actually true. Then it stands to reason that they would actually want to go back to the Middle Ages, because that's where you're heading. And in the Middle Ages, you had the feudal system, right? You had a bunch of people working as serfs and as slaves almost. The Brits were very proud of calling themselves free men, but the fact is they were working in the land, not that well educated. The guys were educated with the priests. Yeah, that's how you keep control. The US right now, can you even read? No, no. Do you have the capability to read like a standard 6 child, grade 8 child? Yeah, that's your capability. It's amazing, and it was done on purpose. It's not that people are born stupid, but their school system makes them stupid. And then you have a elite few who can actually read and write and think, and then they control you. Do you see the similarities with what happened in the feudal system? Now we're going to implement that as well. The feudal system is going to come back. And that is what they try to do. Now, if you attack China like this, China has three options. The first option is to start escorting its vessels. In other words, to say, right, the Navy ship is going with him, they're under the Chinese flag. You try and attack my ship and see what I do to it. The Russians are already doing it. They are already changing their fleet to say, your Russian ships, US, come and try and attack our ships. It's an act of war. See what we do to you. And thus far, the US has backed down. They took piss care to do it. But you also see Trump is trying to get the Russians back into the fold, trying to cut China. They will never succeed. The Russians, I know quite a few of them. I really like them. They're good people, arrogant people at times. But in the first place, they're believers. Now, I will have, as a Seventh-day Adventist, a lot of problems with the Orthodox system, which is basically the original Catholic Church. And then the Bishop of Rome, of course, became the Pope, and they split up. And Constantinople had their own views. They kept their old traditions, and the Catholics became the first beast of the Bible. So there's a lot of things in Orthodox Christianity which I don't like, but I do not judge or think that they are not sincere. They are totally sincere. So that is a Christian nation which is being attacked by all these, I almost call them satanic nations at the moment, because if you walk around in a place like Spainland, Switzerland, or you walk around in Europe, you will find out the churches are empty. They are there, but they are empty. Or you will find out that it's a Catholic country. Or you will find out that they're atheist and they just don't care, or they're becoming Muslim. Yeah, so they lost their faith. And with that, they lost, of course, their direction. The moment you saw that Prince Charles, or what's his name, King Charlie or one, or what, King Charles II, whatever. The moment you saw him actually in Rome, sitting down, praying with the Pope, you should really wonder what's going on. And the moment you see somebody like Donald J. Trump kneeling in a Catholic church next to his wife, Protestants don't do that. We don't do that. We don't go to a Catholic cathedral or church at all, and we will definitely never kneel in. And definitely when you walk in, you will throw up in disgust of all the satanic symbols and things there. You will walk out. But, that is us. So the fact is, what I'm trying to say to you is, they need to crash the dollar. If the Davos crowd want to have a feudal system in the West anyway, if they want to do that in the Christian nations, the so-called formerly Christian nations, they need to crash the dollar. And the best way to crash the dollar is to start either World War III, which is very possible. Very possible. We're looking to do it, and we know Albert Pike's predictions. First World War, Second World War, Third World War starts in the Middle East. Now, Israel, that created country. That country will probably start as the Third World War, which is not to say you should hate them, it's not to say I have anything about Jews. My father was a Jewish man. Listen to my wife's name, Rebecca. Read my books. Find out I'm not anti-Semitic at all. If you call me that, I will sue you. There's no two doubts about it. I will sue you, definitely. So that is probably going to start the Third World War. But the other way to do it also at the same time, even, is what you do is you force China's hand, because the Chinese are actually extremely patient people, much more patient than what they ought to be. They should be fighting back. They are not, and it's really gonna get them, because they really need to wake up to it and smell the coffee. And I think they are waking up. That's why they're building this massive fleet of this, and they have a good fleet. They've got a better fleet than the US Navy. Yeah, read Code Name Lucy. You will find me talking about the US White Navy, and you hear me talk about the Chinese Navy, and you'll hear me talking about the current US Navy, which is shite. That is really not what I think it is. But it's still good enough against smaller countries. But if you can then get China to disinvest in the US, in other words, they have as treasury bonds, and they are disinvesting. And you can get them to take a run on the dollar. In other words, BRICS. Here you come again, BRICS. And you can get BRICS to trade in their own currencies, as they are doing, because they are backed by what? What do I hear? Gold. What is the US dollar backed by? Fuck all. Nothing. Just a promise, an empty promise that we will print more money and give it to you. And of course, in the old days, until I think a year ago, it was backed by the oil, by Saudi, and the petrodollar, as they call it. That doesn't exist anymore. As far as I know, Saudi said they're not going to renew that. They're going to trade in whatever currency they want. Yeah, why? BRICS country. There you go. Even though they're the main supporter of terrorism, Sunni terrorism anyway, jihadism, not Shia, which is Iran. But I'm not going to explain this to you again. You have to really read my books to know what I'm talking about, or listen to my videos, and it might become a bit more clear to you. And if they want to do that, and the Chinese start disinvesting, and they start stopping, refusing to buy these treasury bonds of the US, and they start selling the treasury bonds of the US, which they're doing. Because basically all it is a promise. It is like, okay, guys, I buy this bond from you, give you, say, $100 million. It's a lot more than that, but let's just say $100 million. Here's the money, you go and spend it as you wish. I will spend it in 10 minutes, but anyway. And then a few years later, we, of course, have to pay them back. And it's guaranteed at a certain rate, so it's a very safe investment, or it used to be. It used to be. But now the US has so much debt, and they cannot service that debt anymore. They're going bankrupt. So the dollar is going to crash, because the Chinese are going to say, right, we're not investing anymore. No, we're going to invest in other places. Africa, yeah, big time. We're going to invest in, say, Russia. Yeah, we're going to build these pipelines. Yeah, we're going to build nuclear icebreakers so that we can do the route there in the north. You know, all those things are happening. So what I see from this is there's probably going to be a crash of the dollar, because all they do is they print new money. But all of you know that when you start printing new money, what happened? Oh, well, let's look at history. What was it? Weimar Republic, Germany, 1925, around about 28. You know, when they suddenly realized they don't have a middle class anymore, and you need a wheelbarrow full of money to buy one bread. Yeah. How long is your savings gonna last? Tell me. If you have to buy one bread for 100,000 rands, buy your one bread. Tell me, guys, how long is your savings gonna last? Not gonna last. It's not gonna last. You're gonna be broken. What happens then? Well, Well, you have to work for keeps, man. You have to go and work at the places that they feed you and your family. All right. It's an honorable thing to do. I understand that it happened in the Depression. Great Depression, which we still know about. But please tell me, is that slavery or is that serfdom or is that free man? Tell me, if you work for me for free, I just give you food. Are you my slave? Are you a serf? Are you a servant without pay? Like a bandit? Like, in other words, like somebody in jail? But even they get paid a little bit. Yeah. Do you see what's going to happen? How do you overcome this? Well, you need to have your own food. You need to have a plot of land or something where you can grow your own food. You need to be able to survive. Because there is a thing coming which they call no trade and no sale. Because it won't affect you, it will affect the Sabbath day keepers. And it's already on the law books in half of the US states. It's already there. Yeah. So when this dollar crashes, and note I said when, who do you think we're going to blame? Yeah, think about it. They're going to blame the Sabbath day keepers. They're going to say, you people will bring the wrath of God to us. They might even fake a Jesus. Yeah, we know about their plans to do that as well. And a lot of people will fall for this angel of deceit. Yeah, gonna happen. So you see, all the steps are being put in place here to go to a crisis. Why? Because if you have a crisis, you have control. It is Winston Churchill who actually said, that arch liar, you should look at my video on him. He's the one who actually said that, during the times that we had huge problems, battles going on, nobody really opposed me in Parliament. I was okay because I was, I had no time to worry about other things. It's when the war was going good that they started attacking me. Yeah. So you have control. When there's a crisis, you have control. Therefore, you need to create a crisis. Therefore, you need to create chaos. Because from chaos will come what? Order. Who says that? Jesuits. That Society of Jesus, the one which was created by the Catholic Church to overthrow Protestantism. You don't believe me? Go and read the Oath. It's in many of my books. Oath of Evil. Where do you think the name of the book comes from? Oath of Evil. Because it is an oath of evil. And there they say they will go as low as to pretend to be a Jew. They don't like you. You think they're not anti-Semitic? They're totally anti-Semitic. But you don't see it because you've been brainwashed. It's amazing that you can't see through these things. And once they have this chaos, and the US, that's all they do. Look at their pattern. Wherever they go, they just fuck up. They just create chaos, and then they leave. And then something comes out of it. So they can do this on a very large scale across the world. Then yeah, they're going to implement their system. That's what this is about. That's my warning to you. Now, you don't have to believe me. I don't care. But that's my feelings. That's how I see this Venezuela thing. As I said, we're going to find out very quickly what puppet government they're going to install if the country is going to explode into an Iraq or Vietnam. Probably will. And then you're also going to see a floodgate of Catholics coming north into the US. And guess what? They also said something like when the US rules the world, the Catholic Church rules the world. Did I say that? No, that's one of your own bishops who said that. I'll put a slide in for you here. It's also an oath of evil, of course. So it's interesting times, isn't it? There's always more to it than what you think. Hope you enjoyed this little talk. God bless until we meet again.